Morning, Keith.
Hello, good morning, Paul. That's a
Right.
posh intro for you.
Very posh indeed. Far too posh.
Well, I'm going to hand over to you because this is your. I see that it's got me down as Paul Fowle as well, and quite rightly so. This is the Paul Fowle show, and I'm just lurking in the background in case anything goes wrong because this has been a morning of disaster. But let's hope the Paul's show kicks off with a really grand slam. So there you are, Paul. Over to you, my boy.
Keith. And obviously, you're welcome to join me, Keith, at any time. Especially
I'll stay here, keeping an eagle eye on you.
Right. Well, okay. A welcome then, viewers, ladies and gentlemen, anyone who's out there, and dedicated audience. We're making a new venture here. Keith came up with a very good idea that we should focus more on some of the economic problems. And again, a clever man is Keith. He's done mind your business, whereas my idea of mind your own business was clearly rejected by him, which was a good move. So this is the beginning of the new venture. And the idea is that we're gonna stick to a format. I think this is a spin-off from Keith and my show, if you like. I'm going to be focusing mainly on business, finance, and the economy, which I think are the key areas at the moment. And the good news for everybody is I'm not going to go around dealing with COVID again. COVID, it's a post-COVID era now. I think people have done it to death, so let's go forward in the new venture. So the idea is that we'll cover those three aspects: finance, banking, and the economy, but we will still cover other issues which we think are newsworthy. So it's as broad as it's long, and we have a format, but we can always go away to that with special events. What I've done is kind of put down a mantra in a way. Our aim is really to make comments and opinion on key issues. That's the first thing. Thought-provoking, interesting, and informed. And a key thing, which Keith and I worked out, tell it as it is. The number of shows, the number of newsletters, newspapers, they always kind of put a slant on it. But sometimes, how about telling the truth of it and actually coming out with, and I think the public would accept that. We'll give views, some might be controversial, but at the end of the day, we're looking to find exact facts and truth so that certain things can be reformed, etc. So it's a kind of we'll do our own thing, but stick to the truth as much as we can. And the other two things is we try to give a balanced view and a challenging approach. So that's if you like our aim. Now I should introduce myself actually because some new viewers presumably watching. My background is quite a long one, like Keith's. After university, I joined the police, so I've got the policemanship behind me. I then became a successful financier and banker in the city, and then had a little break in Albania in Eastern Europe for the government, which was good. So, and then the last thing I did, which was of note, I hope, was to take an IT company public. So we did that many years ago, but obviously that's in the past. But like Keith, I think I've got a reasonable grasp of finance, banking, and the economy, which is why we're concentrating on this show. So that's the format and that's the aim. Today I've got time for some topics. We won't finish them all, but this is a kind of what should we say? The kind of stuff that we will concentrate on, and I'll give you some ideas. The topics today, which I probably will touch upon, is that there's a myth about economics, banking, and finance. Everybody thinks all of this is complicated. People talk of algorithms; they don't understand what it does. It's because we're actually vulnerable to social media and technology overload. In other words, if you take everything back to its simplicity, like economics, it's actually quite simple. And I think the modern world is obfuscated and totally mesmerized by billions of facts, of billions of information, and I think everyone would recognise the IT overload. So what we're trying to do is bring it down to, if you like, to commonalities, to the common man, make it simple. Hopefully you'll learn from something like this. But again, anything at first glance seems complex. It really is quite easy once you're a proponent. So that's one of the bases. That's one of the home truths we want to explore. So let's start with the economy, which is probably the most important thing of this, along with business. But the economy, there are myths and legends about this. People think the economy, yes, it is very scientific. Yes, it has algorithms. Yes, it has very government input. But at the end of the day, and I've said this to other broadcasts Keith is aware of, there are 4 words that actually are reality. Forget scientific, not mumbo jumbo sometimes. There is one golden mantra. Sorry, I've just lost my choice. One golden mantra is confidence in the market. That's 4 words, confidence in the market. Forget analysts, etc. I've been in situations in the city where everything seems to be going wrong. And yet, if the market goes a certain way and you're confident, the 2 things go together, you actually don't get crashes. One of the things that we will talk about is about the current economic crisis which we're in, or recovery. The one thing is, some people have actually likened this to the Weimar Republic, when obviously Germany was in recession, like America, like Britain, and had to print money. Now, again, I don't wish to be a doom monger. It could possibly happen. I doubt if it will, but at least with the economic recovery, we've got to recognise there are certain signs and there are certain things we must do. Otherwise, if any nation starts printing money, it's a disastrous situation. Britain did many years ago, as you probably know. So the tenet of the whole thing here is that we make it easy to understand economics, easy to understand the economy, banking, and finance. That's the key message I'll give. This is an introductory one. I'll go into more detail next episode, but that's the gist of it, and I think people will hopefully appreciate that. Let's go on some lots of terms that are used at the moment. A new era, a new normal. Well, that's true. There will be such a thing, and obviously the whole situation has turned upside down. But again, we've got to keep. History actually tells us lessons. We've got to keep. Even from the situations like the war, we've got to keep lessons of all these things. To create a new era that's worthwhile, you have to actually input and put in all the things that matter to people. So we've got a chance here, forget the doom mongers, we've got a chance here to actually make an economic recovery in, say, 2 years, as the Chancellor wants in the budget. And if we can do so, we can actually create an economy which is understandable by people, which produces growth, doesn't have huge shifts, because we know that crashes have occurred in the market, in the city. We don't want that. We don't want another crash in America, mortgage crash, etc. So the idea would be that we stabilize economies. There has to be, in my view, to get to the real nub of it, is that nations should work together. Now, that doesn't actually happen in real life, but in economics, you could argue that can happen, with each party being reciprocal arrangements, etc. i.e., for example, the EU. Now, clearly things are wrong with that, and clearly things are wrong with the country, our own country. But the EU is a good principle. If each country retains its sovereignty but can still deal diplomatically and trade, that's fine, which can be done. And the one thing is that Britain has one of the most important roles of doing this. Britain and Germany are probably the leaders of a reformed EU, but Brexit, people get Brexit rather out of proportion. Brexit, I believe, as an economist, not with any great love of anything nationalistic, the Brexit was the right decision, because it has actually created, or will create, the opportunities for Europe to work together. So this is good. So the message that we're carrying through in all these sessions will be, let's look at the positive side. We'll have to discuss the bad things, and I'll come on to the bad things. But at the moment, don't listen to rumour. Don't listen to, oh God, the Chancellor's got things wrong. We've just got to work together. And in that situation, I think the government's support must be continued for, as I say, Priti Patel, the Chancellor was keen on the 2-year plan. It could go further than 2 years, but let's suck it and see. The one thing I would actually tell everybody now is any predictions are actually worthless. They're pure guesstimates. I can predict and tell you certain things and give my opinion. Anyone who says they know how the world will change after COVID doesn't know what they're talking about, because there's so many factors. Again, overload of factors, overload of technology. We're back to a complex society, but we can make it more simple if we actually work together. So that's the new era side. The things that I think what might worry the average person on the street is the debt level. And again, I come back to, Keith knows my comparison. It's very simple in life. If you take what Margaret Thatcher said, and she has her devotees and her antagonists, but the one thing she said, which sums up everything in economy, is treat anything like the national debt or personal debt or whatever as a household, as you would a household. If you run your household with keeping finances in decent condition, if you make sure you make it clean, etc. The fact she uses the household is very good, because it means that just like a household, a government or a nation can actually sort itself out that way. It's actually taking, basically what we're trying to do in these sessions is to take things down to the base level, because many people go into subjects or topics at the top. They just take what they hear initially, go back to history, go back to something of substance and build on that. But too many people like to go to the top level when the bottom level of the house has not been started. So I think if we look at analogies like the household related to the world economy, it's much easier for I'm not saying the common man, but as Shakespeare would say, all of us would understand things a bit more. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo in the city. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo in government. I think, if I'm not speaking for the nation as such, but from all my discussions with people, I think that they want to make things more simplistic. They want the government to give support. They want the government to explain things in whatever detail they can. They want the city to obviously be the city, and all cities around the world, their financial markets, they want them to be more stable. And we've got to get that right. In the last 20 years, there have been lots of seismic conditions in America's finance, in British finance. Really, we've got to stabilise that. And if we look at the recent budget, which I think people would be interested in, the Chancellor has, to some extent, been over generous with giving support and funds, etc. But at least it's pointing in the right way. That's government support, but that will have to be maintained over the next 2 to 3 years. That goes for most nations, and by that means that debt will increase a lot more in every country. I don't think anyone, China, Russia, they'll have to have postponed, which means that the national debt and the personal debt will both be high. But then if the economy is given the time to recover, that can be brought down very quickly. So the model I'm giving everybody is a model that's been worked out many years ago, even by Pitt the Younger, Pitt the Elder, all the Pitts, etc. If you can certainly go into debt as a nation and a person, as long as it doesn't get seismic, you can always bring it back. And obviously, sometimes there is a reason for good borrowing. If the government, is using our money, borrows something and says, well, this is for this situation, then the people are quite happy. But I think, and Keith and I have talked at this ad nauseum, the key thing is there's a disconnect between the electorate and the government. And if I think in this new era, which everyone says, certainly a big thing in the new era should be that the government does explain things that are explainable. We never expect our government to give all the secrets away. They can't. But it would be nice if a chancellor or a prime minister can stand up in parliament and say, well, this is the economic facts. We propose to do A, B, C, D, E. It's like that. It's actually not. It's basically what a 12-year-old would do. I'm one of these people, and I've got many people who agree with me on this, is that we must simplify things. We must not complicate it. We complicate everything we deal with in life. And it's partly, I hate to say it, generated by the IT and social media. So I plug that simply because I think people are totally confused. What's fake news? What is good news? What is news I should read? And I think everyone's confused, frankly. So whenever you get confused, bring it back to the basics. And I don't think many people do that. I think many so-called experts have some brilliant ideas. When you ask them to explain it, they can't do so. What I'm trying to do in this program, I'm not a great expert, but I'm knowledgeable, is to bring it down to simple terms where you can actually understand it, realize things aren't so bad. If we know the truth about economies, society, etc., then we won't panic, and the new era will actually be a real new era. So that's some of the stuff that we are going to look at. But I'll just carry on. How am I doing for time, Keith?
Well, I was just going to say, for a man who was worried that he would run out of steam after 2 minutes, you've gone 17 minutes, and I would suggest that just to give you a chance to draw for breath, and also our viewers, we take a 2-minute break. How's that?
Okay, perfect. I'll get a coffee. Crikey.
You see, my finger got very twitchy there, Paul, because all
Yeah.
your talk of borrowing millions, and I thought, oh my goodness me, I can't wait to rush down to the bank. Anyway, people at least know where we are now in the lovely town of
Mm,
Lewes, East Sussex. That's where I am, and you are in Hove.
yeah.
And
Excellent.
actually, the nice thing is at one stage, Lewis had two mints. That's mints as
Yeah.
in coin, making coins, not sucking sweets.
Yeah.
And your neighbour, Arundel, or actually Chichester, had one mint. So there you are. You're speaking to an important town economically from
Mm,
an important town. I will
yep.
now shut up.
Okay, no, excellent. No, I must apologise to everybody. Actually, if I've rushed, I kind of did a time thing on it, but I shall be a bit slower in future. But I do apologise. This, as I say, this is the first of hopefully a long series of talks. Having discussed it with Keith, what I propose, as I say, the proposal is to look at. The format we understand is actually engaging the public in interest in making sure that things that have been what should we say, not lies, can be exposed. What we intend to do is keep things very simple. As I say, tell it as it is the best way of saying it, and to look at topics which are of great interest to everybody. And so on that note, I'll just finish with a couple here. Sorry, my phone's just gone off. The key thing now is that government and the public should actually work together. And as we know, there's a disconnect at the moment. So now we've got this new era. It's up to the government to take positive steps and introduce things that will improve everyone's life, and the public to actually explain that, to see that there's a golden goose at the end of the road, if you like. And that's not happening. So my biggest fear is that I'm sure the government will want to do certain things that are good. I'm sure we would like that. But Keith was absolutely right. The debt at the moment is going to be astronomical. That is a worry. But as I've said, if you look at the Weimar Republic, look at all the past where Robert Walpole's government in the 18th century ran out of money. They went into a pyramid scam, if you like, for those days. So what we have to do is to make sure that government and public work together on the same road, whereas at the moment, I think the public and the government's on one road up there, and the rest of the public are all over the place going in different roads. Now, I know what I've said today is a bit more, is a wish list, really. I've not tried to be idealistic, but these are all ideals that we think are good. So in this new era, the government has to take steps to tell us why it's a new era, to say what the benefits will, and we've got to listen and say yay or nay. Remember, and I think this is an obvious thing to say, but people miss this out. The government are spending our money. There are some people, I think, walking around the streets who are thinking that, it's our money. As a taxpayer, we vote in the government to look after our money and our prospects, and they have to do that. I think many governments have reneged on that, and we, being quite apathetic, haven't done anything about it. But if I have a common theme for today's introduction, it is simply that that's how it's got to work. You can't have, as in the Chinese situation, where China's Politburo have a huge disconnect with the population. And for various reasons, it's for control. So we mustn't go down that route. We must go working together. And the economy is not in such a bad way. Britain has still got the fifth best economy in the world. So let's give ourselves a bit of polish our medals and say we've not done a bad job. It's about now we're over COVID and things are going back to normality and a new era. I'm very optimistic that actually the way forward can be quite easy if nations work together, which is the hard part. But certainly, the government must be in direct connection with the public. And I don't believe that the government have really told us everything we need to know. And I suppose that could be said about the French government, the Chinese government, etc. That's what governments do. But I think we've got to reform, a root and branch reform, as Boris called it, of all things, including government. So this first program has been a bit of a wish list. Next program, oh, by the way, I forget the case study. Every program, I'll make sure there's a 5-minute case study on the current one we've been looking at, Keith and I, is the Greensill debacle of Liberty Steel, where David Cameron is a consultant lobbyist. So that I will continue next week. So sorry, it's been a bit all over the place, the first introduction, but what we've tried to achieve is what we've tried to tell everyone is our aims are quite simple. Everything's explainable. We'll make things quite easy to understand, and which is, I think, a lot more than many governments do. We don't talk in doublespeak here. Keith and I tell it as it is, and that's what we're about.
Now, believe it or not, Paul, you've only got 2 minutes left.
Oh.
Can I just ask you one quickie? Because you talk about partnership between the public and the government, but the government have got a little whiff of not being clever boys at the moment around them. How serious do you think that is?
I agree. Yeah, the government doublespeak, isn't it, Keith? Sometimes I think the politicians are so arrogant that they think we know better than the people, therefore we'll take this decision. And it's been a common thing, Keith, throughout the ages. I think the thing is the public, our British public, are not stupid, but we're very slow to gather momentum to complain. That's always been the way. We don't do revolution here, we do evolution. And that's good. But sometimes you need to give the government a kick up the backside without breaking the law. And I think the public have every right to do that and to know exactly what's going on. The Chancellor, was good in his budget, but he only gave good news when there's obviously bad news. Sometimes it's good to tell the public bad news. So, yeah, you're right, Keith. Whether it's Boris or Corbyn or whoever, every leader seems to have to keep something back, or they shouldn't have to know that. I don't see why they can't explain it. And, people will be, if people are kept informed, they're a happier people.
Don't you worry, Paul. When they start to watch this program, they'll be very anxious to tell before you do. Because they'll put the better spin on it. Right, you're out of time, my boy. Okay. Isn't that wonderful? Here's a man who was worried silly that he was going to dry up long before the end, and I can't shut him up. Paul, I thought that was a very good introductory program. You've explained what you're going to do, but you also explained a few things along the way. And if I can understand them, anybody can understand them. So well done. So when do we see you next?
Well, I learned it all from you, Keith. Obviously, I've read your book, so that's why I'm good. If I'm any good, it's partly your inspiration. As I say, we haven't talked about the follow-ups, but I probably 2 programs a week. I don't think the public
want to. That'd be very good. That'd be very good as a starter. As a starter, 2 a week as a starter. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow, and we look forward to it. Okay, right. Take care.
Cheers, Keith. Bye. Bye.